Okay, so I just have to tell this story because I recently realized that something I had gone through reminds me so much of what it is like to go through cirrhosis, or at least to watch your loved one go through cirrhosis. So, have you ever had a situation where you found out when it was a little bit too late that you had been paying a huge amount of money for something that you weren't aware that you were being charged for? That's actually happened to me a few times in my life, and it happened to me recently where I paid for Google AdWords. Just to let you guys know, there are a lot of people who find my blog organically on Google, but there are other times where I pay for Google AdWords, and an ad will pop up and people will click on it and find my site that way. And what I did recently was I actually paid for Google AdWords, and I have done that before, but this time it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was fooling around with the controls, and somehow I ended up changing something so that I basically I removed the normal controls that I had, so that all of a sudden I didn't have a cap on the cost per click. And what happened was I ended up getting charged $6.36 per click. For like every single click was $6.36. And I thought, oh my gosh, that had never happened to me before. And this was going on for 3 days. So it was a combination of things. Actually, it was a different campaign that I was running, and it was like a new campaign. And I guess that I shouldn't have changed the controls. If I had known what was going to happen, there is no way I would have changed it. I mean, I just sort of assumed that I was going to be charged what I normally am charged, which is really not that much. And so I don't know what I did, but I changed something for the worse. And another thing that I did was and this was really silly on my part, but when I did the advertising campaign, I actually said, well, I want to spend about $10 a day. And I noticed, actually, no, it was $25 a day. And I noticed that when I asked for 25 a day, they were still only giving me like $10 a day worth of advertising. And so in my mind, I kind of came up with this theory that, okay, so if I ask for 25, but I only get 10, then that means that if I want 50, I need to ask for 100. Somehow I was just like, it's kind of like, if you're a kid and you want $10 from your parents, if you ask for $10, but they'll say, no, I'll give you 5, then you kind of like psychologically work out that, okay, well, you have to ask for more to get less, So somehow I thought that by asking for 100, I would only get, actually, honestly, I don't know how I did the math on this one. I clearly did it wrong, but I was thinking, okay, I'll ask for 100 and then I'll get 25. Well, as it turned out, when I asked for 100, and they saw that I was willing to spend 100, all of a sudden they jacked up the cost per click. It was way higher than anything I'd ever paid. And they actually told me later on that it could have been as high as $20. So I guess I should be grateful for that it wasn't. But I was shocked to find out after 3 days that I had been charged $300. This was a total surprise to me, given the fact that I thought I was only paying about $25, and I was only paying, $25 a day, and I thought I was only paying like $1 a click or so. And so I just didn't know, and I was very upset, and I ended up calling Google and asking to talk to a lot of different people, and I asked to talk to a lot of different supervisors, and it took me hours to finally get them to say, okay, fine, we will give you a credit. And it wasn't a full credit, it wasn't even half, but it was still, they gave me something, but it took so much work for me to get that credit. And I remember kind of thinking to myself, wow, this is kind of like what it's like to go through cirrhosis. It's like that feeling that you have of suddenly realizing that you were getting charged this huge amount of money, that this thing that you were not aware was costing you a lot of money ended up costing you a lot of money, because you just weren't aware of what was going on, or you weren't paying attention, or, you know, like, honestly, I was just really, really busy. Normally, if I wasn't so busy, normally I would have checked up after that first day of advertising. I would have just kind of logged back in and just made sure everything was okay, because I kind of knew as I was coming up with this little theory that, okay, well, if I spend 100, then I'll get 25. I kind of knew, of course, there was something in the back of my brain that was like, I'm just sort of experimenting with this on my own here. And so I really should have followed up the next day, but the system, I felt that the system was confusing and I was confused. And so I just went ahead and I did what I did, and I didn't follow up, and I got charged, and I had to pay the price. So I was very fortunate that they were able to take some of those charges off, but ultimately I knew that they didn't have to, and it kind of was my screw up. I was just really hoping that they would, as a good faith kind of customer service oriented gesture, that they would be willing to work with me and forgive that as a stupid excuse on my part from a customer who had, you know, given them a lot of business and would continue to give them a lot of business. So luckily, you know, we ended up finding a good, you know, win-win situation for both of us, but it's still, I wouldn't necessarily call it a win-win situation. For me, it was still kind of a losing situation because that was just a losing campaign. But I'm just saying, this is how it kind of feels when your loved one has cirrhosis. And, you know, in that first year of my husband's recovery, he took the slow route in recovering. And, you know, I thought everything was fine, in the same way that I thought when I was running those Google ads for 3 days without checking up on the situation and, you know, doing my research and finding out what was going on. I didn't realize how much damage was being done to his body from things that I didn't quite understand, like oxidative stress, or, you know, that ammonia still kind of being in his system. And, you know, and I don't blame myself for not understanding those things, but I kind of feel like maybe part of the purpose of us going through that was maybe God recognizes that I have kind of a big mouth and that I would tell people what's going on, because nobody told me. And I feel like there's a lot of people who don't really understand how all this works either. So I just want to tell you guys that, you know, I've seen so many people get to this point where they have loved ones who are sick, and it just drags out for a really, really long time. And then it ends up that it just turns into such an expensive, costly disease. Like all of a sudden they're like going into the hospital all the time, or maybe they've already gone into the hospital over and over again, and now they're at a point where they feel that they're kind of stable, but they're still not doing everything that they can to try and get rid of all those toxins and get their bodies back on track. And, you know, and of course the doctors say, oh, there's nothing that you can do besides get a liver transplant. And in some cases, they don't even offer a liver transplant. And I'm not saying that, you know, trying to go with natural methods is better than a liver transplant. In our opinion, me and my husband, it was definitely a better option. It was a preferred option, because knowing that a liver transplant is $577,000 and that you're going to have to be on anti-rejection drugs for the rest of your life, and those cost between $3,000 and $6,000, and that those anti-rejection drugs can put you at a higher risk for cancer and diabetes. That to us was not a great option. Now, I don't blame anybody out there who's listening to this who's had a liver transplant, or if you truly feel that that is the best option for you. I have seen some cases of people who have had liver transplants, and they seem like they're happy with their transplants. And so I can't say for sure if that, you know, wouldn't be the best option for you. It's just definitely not the option that we wanted to take, that my husband wanted to take, and I was happy because I was on the same page as him. But, you know, everyone's a little bit different. But for people who are not eligible for a transplant or don't want to take that route, I want to tell you that in my very strong opinion, there are other things that you can do, but you want to make sure that you do those things as quickly as you can, because you're getting charged a lot per day, so to speak. You know, it's kind of like how I was getting charged having the Google AdWords stuff running, and I just was not aware of the fact that we were getting charged. What I mean by getting charged is, so while my husband was going for a year's worth of recovering, he was taking all of these diuretics and, and drugs that we did not realize at the time can cause serious calcium depletion in the body. And he ended up developing osteoporosis, and I couldn't understand what was going on. And now I realize that the spironolactone and the furosemide had worse side effects than I was aware of. Only oh my gosh, years after he was taking those things, I found out that spironolactone has a black box warning, and it's shown to cause tumors in rats. And Lasix, otherwise known as furosemide, actually causes kidney failure, which I think I knew, but it also causes very elevated sugar levels, which is what happened to him. And so it's something where, and it also causes extreme calcium depletion. And so, and also digoxin also causes calcium depletion, and proton pump inhibitors cause calcium depletion. If you go to the FDA's website, you will see it is written on there that that proton pump inhibitors can put you at a much higher risk for osteoporosis and bone fractures. And so picture somebody who has cirrhosis, who already has an impaired liver that has a very, very hard time trying to process and utilize calcium in the body. Picture this person now is taking 3 different things that are known to inhibit calcium. Okay, it's like you're like osteoporosis waiting to happen. My husband actually shrank 3 inches in that year of recovery while he was taking these different things. And I couldn't figure out, why does he look like he's aging? Like the shape of his face was literally changing because he was losing all this calcium. And, I just didn't understand what was going on. And now I realize exactly what was going on. He was losing massive amounts of bone. He shrank 3 inches, and he still hasn't recovered from that. And so I'm just letting you know, honestly, if we could go back into time and redo the situation, I swear on my father's grave, if somebody said, hey, we'll let you go back into time, but that water machine that you have, it's going to cost you $100,000. I swear on my father's grave, absolutely, for sure, I would consider that a great deal. And I would have said, no problem, $100,000, we don't have it, but we will get it. We'll have to get a mortgage, but we will absolutely get that $100,000. I would actually consider that very, very cheap. And if they said, well, it's going to cost you $200,000 again, I would still do it. I wouldn't think of it as much as a good of a deal as if they offered it for 100, but I would still absolutely do it. If it was 300,000, I'd have to talk to people and, find out, okay, can we do this? Do we qualify for a loan for 300? I'm just saying, like, I've literally analyzed it to this degree where I've thought, how much would I pay for that machine? And honestly, I think I would go up to like probably at least $500,000. And it's just because, honestly, in my mind, I look at it like, well, what is my husband's life worth? Because he used to talk about how he was sure he was going to be able to live to be over 100 years old. And I really believed him. And with the damage that was done to his body, I mean, it really, really took a toll on him. And seeing what happened to him made me really realize, wow, he kind of looks like somebody how, when you see certain people, you just think, oh, they're going to live to they're 80 or 90. Some people are just really healthy. And of course, you just really never know when someone's number is going to be up. But I just look at my husband and I think, gosh, he looks like somebody who would probably make it to about 75. And you just never know. Again, like he could outlive me. And so we just don't know. But it just makes me sad to think that I no longer look at him like somebody who's going to live to be, 100, like I used to think. And so sometimes I think, wow, that's like a difference of 25 years. And I think, what is 25 years worth? I absolutely think 25 years is worth $100,000 or 200, probably 300. You know, it kind of depends on where you are financially, I guess. But in my opinion, I hope that this gets it across to you guys why, you know, when I talk about the water machines and, you know, PEMF and stuff like that, to me, these things seem really, really cheap. I know some other people don't think that way, but in my mind, it's just dirt cheap, because how can you put a price on somebody's life, their quality of life? Like, I'm so happy that my husband is better. His FibroScan results showed that his FibroScan score was 9.37, which is out of the cirrhosis range. It's down to stage 2 liver disease. It's right on the cusp of stage 2 and stage 3, but still, that was his score reading. And so I feel really good. You know, his liver enzymes are normal. He has energy now. His voice sounds really great. It's clearer. He's able to go on long hikes with his son. He works full time. You know, he enjoys his job. He's really good at what he does. And so I feel like, you know, I know that he has made tremendous progress, and I'm so lucky that he's still around. And I know that we got really lucky, but at the same time, I think, gosh, we could have just done so much better if we had just started earlier, you know? And so that's what I want to share with you guys. You know, like, what are you paying for on a daily basis that you're not really seeing the bill for it yet, you know? And so I'll give you another example of something that happened to him. So because he was losing so much calcium, he started having his teeth fall out. And he has had so much work, so much dental work done. The amount of money that he has paid for dental work so far has been like, we could easily have gotten a professional grade PEMF mat and a water machine, probably 2 of each at this point in terms of what he's had to pay for dental work. And keep in mind too, once you lose your natural teeth and you have like implants put in, you are not going to have the same health as you did before when you had your natural teeth. Now you've got this implant, you have to worry about, you know, bacterial infections and things like that. And, you know, everybody knows that when you have you know, dental problems, that leads to heart disease. You know, there's nothing like your natural body's system to be able to fight against infection. You know, we're just so perfectly designed as we are. So you don't want to have to be in a position where you have to have false teeth. I know this one gal, she bought a water machine for her ex-boyfriend, and he ended up losing all his teeth. Actually, this was long before he got a water machine, but he lost all his teeth. And then he was drinking the water. He was doing the same PEMF mat that we have. He was doing great. It was like a PEMF rental, mat rental. And then they got into this huge fight. He felt that she was, you know, being too, I don't know, bossy or something, like telling him what to do. And I think a lot of men or a lot of people feel like they go through that, where they just get tired of, you know, somebody telling them, you have to do this, you have to do that. I mean, me and my husband totally have been through that. And so they went through that, and he got really upset with her, and he refused to drink the water or sit on the mat. And then he started getting worse and just worse and worse. And he was like sliding downhill again. And it kills me because before, when he was drinking the water and using the mat, his doctor actually said to him, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. He was clearly improving. But then he stopped everything, started going downhill, and then he ate oysters. And after he ate the oysters, he immediately developed sepsis, and he died. So just for anybody who's listening to this, if your doctor did not warn you that you should not be eating any raw seafood or oysters, do not eat that stuff, because you can develop sepsis and die. We were not warned about that. And so I just want to make sure that you know that. So anyway, but this guy, the reason I brought him up is because he had all of his teeth replaced. And then he died. I think that his ex-girlfriend told me that he had spent like it was at least $60,000 on his teeth, you know, getting them all replaced. And I just think, oh my gosh, you know, it's such an expensive disease. And again, it's one of those things where you may not realize every single day that ticks by where you have an impaired liver, it is costing you a lot of money. that you may not be aware, because you may not have the bill yet. You may not see yet what it is that you're going to have to pay for down the road. But when that bill comes, it's like, oh my God, you know, and some of you may be thinking to yourselves, like I did, I wish somebody warned me. But nobody did. People just don't warn you of this stuff, like exactly what you're going to end up paying for, you know, down the road. So I want to be that person who tells you guys. I'll give you another example of a situation that I was in where something ended up being really costly and I wasn't aware that it was going to be so expensive. So when my husband got encephalopathy in 2014, in January, first week of January, he crashed and totaled his car. Oh, it was such a great car. It was a Prius, and we loved that car so much. But yeah, he crashed into a cement wall and went into the hospital, was so catatonic. He didn't even recognize me. He was chewing on his shirt. And anyway, so we had to get a new car. And he ended up getting this Volvo station wagon. Got a great deal on it. Some guy off Craigslist was selling it. Great condition. My husband drove that car for a couple of years. And then eventually the transmission kind of went out. And, oh no. Well, there were issues with the transmission, but the bigger issue was that there was something wrong with the engine. Like it had this gasket issue where, there was like a leak in the gasket somehow. And so we were trying to decide, okay, what do we do with this car? You know, my husband just decided, I don't want to deal with having to fix the transmission and this engine issue. And so I'm just going to go ahead and get a new car. So he didn't even talk to me about it. He just showed up one day with this new car. And he's like, oh my God, look at this great deal I got on this car. And it was another station wagon. It was really nice. It was nice on the inside. It was obviously very well cared for. He got a great deal on it. So now we had two cars. But the thing is, that car had some issues as well. And so we were scared to give up the Volvo because I thought, okay, well, what if this new car gives out? Then we're going to need a backup car. So we just kind of kept it around and we parked it on the street. And because we weren't really using it, and I wasn't checking the street every day to make sure it was still there. And then there was this one day where we looked out on the street and it was like, where's the Volvo? And we realized that it had been towed. And I guess, you know, on our street, we do have this rule that you're not supposed to park for more than 3 days, but we were just completely unaware. Oh, I know what it was. I think that the registration was expired. That was it. So it was a combination of the registration was expired and it was parked for too long. And so they just went, and I guess maybe they booted it up and we weren't aware of it because they probably put the boot on the other side where when we look out our front window, we didn't see it. So anyway, so the car got towed. We had to figure out where it was. We found the car, and come to find out, it was so expensive. We had been charged so much on a daily basis for this car, and we just had no idea that this was even going on. As far as we were concerned, that car was still parked out in the front. And so, and I don't know if you've ever had your car towed, and this is the first time it had ever happened to us. We were thinking, oh, okay, well, you know, it's kind of a cheap old car. We'll just let them keep it. And I was like, no, you can't do that. You can't just say, oh no, I'm just going to walk away. No, you are responsible for all those charges that you had accumulated while the car was in the shop. So we found out the hard way. Not only did we have to come up with the money to pay for all the days that it had already been in the tow yard, but we also had to pay fees. We had to pay for the registration to get it out. You know, all these things. It was such a huge headache. And it was so costly. And I just think, oh my gosh, I wish somebody could have told us, hey, just the heads up, you know, we saw your car being towed the other day or something. But we had no idea until, you know, all this cost had accumulated. And so I just think, you know, and that story kind of reminds me of the thing that happened with Google AdWords. I just had no idea that it was so expensive. We were like, you know, cha-ching, all this money was getting accumulated, like flowing out of our bank accounts or about to, when we weren't even aware of it. And I just think that that is so much like what it's like to go through cirrhosis, where it is just so costly and people don't realize this huge bill that they're about to face and realize, oh my gosh, I have to pay for this. And it's because you're in this sort of floating zone where like things are accumulating, but you're not aware of what's going on or how costly it's about to get because you're not doing something about it right now, you know? And so I just wanted to make this recording to tell you guys, please, if there's anything that you can do to turn your situation around as soon as possible. I truly, personally do believe that there are a lot of natural things that you can do to help your body. I am not saying that there is a cure for cirrhosis. I'm not saying that there is a treatment for cirrhosis, but I am saying absolutely that there are ways that you can detoxify your body, and there are things that you can do to reduce oxidative stress. And those things are extremely, extremely beneficial. So I hope you're willing to look into those things. If you want more information about the water or PEMF, please fill out the contact form that is on the left-hand side of the blog. There's like a box that says, are you looking for information about water or PEMF? Please take the time to fill that out. Get in touch with me, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. But anyway, I hope this story has been helpful for you. And if you get in touch with me, I look forward to speaking with you. Okay, guys, take care. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.